Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. We have today Scott Plakon. He's District 37, Florida State Representative. Scott's been on The Factor, he's been on Rachel Maddow's show, he's been all over television, and now you're here with us today. Thanks for coming over, Scott.
And thanks for having me on, Bill. I appreciate it.
I'm very excited. This has been a very, very busy year in the legislature. We've had redistricting, we've had all kinds of things going through, and you've been right there central to it all. What are some of the most important things that you think have happened throughout the year?
Well, probably the two major issues we dealt with during this past session would be the budget, first of all, and second of all, the redistricting process that only happens once every 10 years. The redistricting process is typically a contentious process, and this year it was that as well. But I am very, very proud, in particular the House of Representatives, the maps that we drew. The House maps passed the Supreme Court 7-0. The Senate and the congressional maps are still up there with the Supreme Court, and we'll see the outcome soon on those. But I could not be more proud of the way we conducted ourselves with that, and I think the results show that. There's a lot of us that disagreed with Amendments 5 and 6, but as soon as the voters spoke out in 2010 and they passed with over 60%, we fulfilled our oath to the Constitution, and I believe that the results show that. The second major issue that we dealt with was the budget. There's probably a couple thousand bills filed each year. I think 253 passed both houses, but the one that I was proudest to vote on is the Florida budget. We were able to, despite a $1.8 billion shortfall this year, after $4.6 billion, I believe, last year, we were able to produce a balanced budget, as is our constitutional responsibility, without raising taxes and fees, and we were able to put $1 billion more into education. I would say that's probably one of my proudest moments is the Florida budget and taking that vote this year.
I was reading something just yesterday, I believe, in the St. Petersburg Times that was talking about education and money's going into education and the shortfalls at the universities, the problems that they're going to have to raise their fees going in again this year. What's going to happen? Are we looking at just ever increasing college costs?
Well, right now, if you look at the cost to Floridians for public education, higher education in the state of Florida, it is significantly below the median in other states.
Really?
Yes, something about a third less along those lines. So the question is how can we have a world-class public higher education system while we're charging Floridians about a third less than some of the other states? So I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, we put sort of a glide path where that they could raise rates to a certain point to try to bring some equilibrium, at least with the other states, so we can be competitive. I believe of the top 63 sort of world-class universities, there's a rating system for that. We only have one in that group, University of Florida. So I think that by some of the moves we made, we need to do this to be competitive, and that ties into our job picture as well. Without a world-class higher education system in our state, it's going to be difficult for us to compete for the jobs of tomorrow.
I think you're very right there. I wasn't really fond of this polytech, and I won't even ask you because that's such a complicated matter to get into in the short time here. But I'd like to see them go back to some basic things on college educations where kids don't graduate owing their soul to the company store.
Well, we subsidize higher education in the state of Florida like most states, and it is significantly cheaper to go to one of our 11 state universities or the state colleges as well. So the amount of debt is way less. But I'm one that has actually 3 kids in the university system.
Good luck.
I've got one at Seminole State College, and then I have one at Florida State and one at University of Florida. So I am firsthand going to be experiencing any type of tuition increases that come from these, particularly at Florida State and University of Florida.
Out of curiosity, and I think our people watching the program watch this show because they really want to get to know you as much as what you think, where you come from, and what you do. You obviously don't support a family and 3 kids in college on the fees you receive for being a state legislator. What else do you do? What other business interests do you have?
Well, 3 kids is just a down payment on the number of total kids.
Oh.
Bill, we have a total of 6, and I've survived.
Glutton for punishment, right?
Yeah, we're down to just 1 in the house now, and the rest, like I said, either in college or beyond. My day job, as I like to call it, is I own a publishing company called Nationwide Publishing Company based in Volusia County. We publish resources around the United States for insurance adjusters, and we employ about 50 people here in the state of Florida and a handful of people out in Arizona as well. I started the business in 1998, and we've, during the recession the last few years, we're down somewhat, but we're hanging in there and doing okay. And but I look at, when I describe myself in being an elected official, I like to say I'm first husband to Susie, father of 6, small business owner, and then Florida State Representative from District 37. And I think that my opinion is that's the way we as representatives should look at ourselves, that we have a citizen legislature and those things should define us, and then we go to Tallahassee to make laws which we live under afterwards as well.
Well, especially being a small business person, that's a very important thing.
Well, I think it is. And if you look at the different philosophies of governing, so to speak, there's one side that would say, government provides the solution towards various type of needs, and the other side would say that really small businesses and job creation is really the drivers of the economy. I fall in on that side. That a lot of the needs that people were concerned with this year's budget that we couldn't come up with the money for, I think Marco Rubio said it best. We shouldn't be raising taxes on people. What we need to do is focus on things that will get government out of the way, create economic prosperity, and create more taxpayers. So then these needs, these critical needs in education, healthcare, public safety, if we create more taxpayers and get more people put to work that are working in the workforce, all the rest of these needs will take care of themselves.
That's a very important philosophy. It really is. It's really hard to argue with the fact that the more people paying taxes, the better things are going to be. But we have to look for some equality in tax structure too, though.
Well, of course, both federal and state. Here in the state, our state government, we have a great system here. We actually don't have any state income taxes.
I know.
And,
and a lot of my friends have moved here for that very reason.
Well, yeah, and I think if you going back to our budget and how it ties into all this, we produce this balanced budget without raising taxes. I'll contrast that for a moment with the state of Illinois. Last January, on their legislature's last day of session, they raised both corporate and personal income taxes more than 50%. Actually, in one day.
Really?
That's correct. Since that time, the state of Illinois has lost about 100,000 jobs, and the state of Florida has gained about 100,000 jobs. There is a family in my district. I got an email just before session started, and he says that he actually made a contribution to my campaign, somebody I didn't even know who they were, and said that he just moved 18 families down from Illinois because of the type of things that I just spoke about, and they moved down last summer. So after session, I had breakfast with him and some of his employees and found out it was 18 out of 18 families because the decisions the Illinois legislature, and I think 5 of their last 6 governors are serving prison sentences on top of it. Okay, because of those decisions
they have quite a track record.
He believes that they don't, particularly these young families, don't have a future there because the chickens will come home to roost, so to speak, and the taxation will have to increase there. Here in Florida, however, we don't have any of the individual income tax, and we're trying to, as best we can, phase out the corporate income taxes. So if you're a business like that, and it's a high-tech business, it's actually a no-brainer. Why would you stay up there? And by the way, we have beautiful beaches, water on 3 sides, and if you got kids, we got Disney World.
That's interesting, but if nobody pays any taxes, how do we run this government?
Well,
property taxes?
We have property taxes, we have sales taxes, and yeah, we have taxation. But I think that if you look at the overall budget and the way it's built, we would say that government is less the answer. Illinois would say government's more the answer. Another comparison would be New York State. New York State has almost the same number of citizens that we have now, and their budget is almost double that the state of Florida. That's an example where they would say that government can take care of all these needs. We would say, let's have a reasonable amount of government, and let the private sector take over. And I think that the results are bearing that out. If you look at Governor Scott's jobs initiatives and some of the stuff he's worked with us on, our unemployment rate since January of last year has went from 12.3 to 9.0 just recently. And this past month, it went from 9.4 to 9.0, which is the largest single month drop in 20 years. So these policies clearly are working.
I guess I agree that the less taxes are better. But I also, as I look at this, and maybe it's a perception, and maybe you can clear it up, but it appears to me that we have pretty much balanced the budget on the backs of the people who can least afford to have it balanced on. Disabled, children, things of that nature, where we're not doing the things we've done in the past. Children's services in the state of Florida have been a mess ever since I moved down here 13 years ago.
Well, I would agree.
Is that a misconception? Have I got a misconception here? It seems that we've really shifted a lot of money over here, but taking it from here.
Well, speaking specifically about DCF, as of 13 years ago, absolutely, it was an absolute mess. And I will defend the Department of DCF recently. They've laid off a lot of this under Governor Bush to the community-based care model. So in essence, certain parts of it are outsourced. And I think by anybody's measure, those are working very, very well. Now, David Wilkins, the secretary, he's got tens of thousands of kids under his care. And
you only hear where it goes wrong.
You hear certainly about tragedies, but as I say it, they take in situations that are very bad to begin with, and most of them get better, but every now and then one goes badly, like we've seen from time to time. But I would defend what they're doing, and I think they do a very good job of it, and I think the CBC model, by any measure, has taken us from worse in the country, basically laughably the way we handle this, to one of the best in the country in terms of care. In terms of the overall budget with a lot of these needs, it really comes down to choices. The choice is we can raise taxes to take care of some of these needs, or we can stay the course like we're doing, and yes, it's hard and it puts a burden on a lot of people, and I understand that. But now as people are coming to Florida and these jobs are being created, just like I said before, I think that some of these other states may be recovering for years. I think you're going to see Florida, and you already are pulling out of this much quicker, and you'll see more taxpayers, and then these needs will be easier to be met.
There's been an old saying that went on for years that said the scariest thing to do is have someone knock on your door and say, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." But on the other hand, I also keep hearing that if we give tax breaks, we're going to have jobs. We've been doing that for 10 years and the jobs aren't there. So I don't know where the balance is.
Well, I would disagree with the jobs aren't there. And again, I've only been in for a few years, but particularly as of last year, when we have made a decided effort to do this, 100,000, actually over 100,000 jobs in the last year. Tax breaks, and I think to this governor's credit, we have numerous tax incentives, and some have been worked very well. The film industry tax credit, I think, would be a good example, and some not as well. So I think that this governor is very focused on accountability and making sure, if we are attracting industries in this way, that year by year they're accountable to make sure that we're making progress, and it is having the intended effect.
Let's move on to districts. You talked about the second big thing in the state was redistricting. What's happened to your district and where is it?
Well, my current district is District 37, which is places like Longwood, Altamont, the western part of Seminole County, and a little bit of Maitland and Apopka in Orange County. It's about 88% Seminole County, 12% Orange County.
A little north of Orlando.
Correct. The district I'm going to be running in this fall is the new District 30, which is about 45% the same district, and it also takes in part of Winter Park, all of Maitland, now is all of Altamont, and part of Castleberry, and all of Eatonville. So it's about 45% the same.
From what I've seen, this is a real move forward, this design that the legislature has come up with. It's more compact, it doesn't follow railroad lines and telephone poles to come up with a decent district anymore.
Well, I think that we'll see how it works out in the long term. One of the things that's not known yet is how this is going to affect the elections. One of the things that there has been great progress over the past, I think, 10 or 15 years is minority access. There's been more African American and Hispanics in the legislature than ever before. So there's some that are concerned because of the way that they're done now that, hopefully it doesn't impact that and move back on some of the progress that's made. Again, I was opposed to Amendments 5 and 6 because I think historically in this country, it's been the legislature's responsibility to draw the maps. Now we have a scenario where the Florida Supreme Court is intricately involved in drawing the maps. I'm one more for let the legislature draw them and live with the consequences, being open and transparent. But again, the voters spoke, and this is the way we're doing it. But we've got the courts heavily involved in this now.
To be honest with you, I do not like special districts for special people. If you want to live in a district, go live there. But I don't much care for these districts that are all black, all Hispanic, all whatever. Well, somehow that the Supreme Court said we have to do it. So who might argue with it? But
well, it's the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Right.
Basically compels us to do this, and that has a bearing on the rest of the districts. And that was one of the questions we grappled with this year: is how to comply with the federal law that requires us to provide these districts and also still make compact districts,
right,
like Amendments 5 and 6 require us to do. And that's where the courts are involved in sorting that out with the proper balances with that.
But fortunately, the House did it right, and the court didn't have to get involved.
Well, I'm not going to say that the Senate didn't do it right. What part of the problem with Amendment 5 and 6 is they were not entirely clear. They gave us some guidance. So at the end of the day, we used using our best intention to divine what the voters and federal law would require and produce the maps. And in our case, the Supreme Court agreed. But part of the problem with Amendments 5 and 6 is the lack of clarity and specificity in them.
You have been involved in some very important legislation over the last 4 years. What are some of those? I know energy is near and dear to your heart. That's one of the ones that you were involved with. Would you like to explain that a little bit?
Well, sure. The Speaker last year appointed me to serve as the Chairman of Energy and Utilities Subcommittee in the House, and we immediately embarked on producing a comprehensive energy bill. The legislature has not been able to pass an energy bill since 2008, so there's plenty of perils in doing so. I really appreciated the leadership of Commissioner Adam Putnam this year, the Ag and Consumer Services Commissioner.
He's one of my heroes.
Yeah, he was great to work with, and I think his leadership has helped bring it over to the goal line. Also, Chairman McKeel of State Affairs, who I work closely with Commissioner Putnam, and Senator Gardner is the Energy and Utility Chair over in the Senate. It was a real team effort to get this over the goal line. And what we've done is just taken I call it a baby step. Commissioner Putnam calls it a modest step towards moving forward with renewable energy in a state. And there's been some misconceptions about this in a lot of the media, but the very foundation of this bill is we put nothing in there that would raise rates to customers. So every time I'm on a TV show like this, I make that clear. The governor made it clear that if there was any rate increase, that it would meet the same fate that the energy bill met last year. So we were very, very careful throughout the process to make sure that that was the case.
When Commissioner Putnam decided not to be a congressman anymore, he came on this show, and I asked him, I said, why are you leaving what you could be there till you got gray hair, which is a long time for him. Why are you leaving a safe seat? And he said, I have to get out of Washington. Well, at least part of my soul is intact. And I thought, wow.
Well, he was great to work with, and I think that Florida is the better to have him in such a high-ranking position as member of the Florida cabinet. And I think that this energy bill is a good evidence of that. I don't think without his leadership, I don't think we could have got it done.
I can see him being governor one of these days.
Okay, he's that type of leader, and there's been that type of speculation. And as a House member, I'm probably not going to get involved in that type of speculation.
No, I understand
Bill.
that, but personally, I just think he's that kind of guy that
he is
would
a great
do a great
leader.
job in the state of Florida.
He is a great leader, and I got to see it firsthand in working so closely with him on this.
I like his
energy bill.
us rather than me approach to a lot of things.
That throughout this whole project, if you will, that was the case. It was us and what's best for the people of the state of Florida.
As a result of this bill, how will the people benefit?
There was an economic analysis done the week it was signed, saying that the estimate from this outside economist was up to 3,000 jobs. It would add tens of millions of dollars to the tax rolls. It would diversify, albeit in a small way, away from the natural gas, which will soon be 70% of our power generation. Again, I don't want to overestimate. It's a baby step.
No magic wand.
But it's not a magic wand, but at least we've done something to move forward with renewables. And you know, there was some concern that you know, some renewables are more expensive, that it would cost ratepayers. And again, I need to say clearly, this will not affect ratepayers. This bill was very clearly designed to make sure that that was so.
What other project are you most proud of?
Well, this year, myself and Senator Simmons passed a bill to increase to update our stalking and cyber stalking statutes. That passed unanimously through the House and Senate. Also, a bill that's been quite notable, has gotten a lot of media, is we have an infestation of internet cafe sweepstakes gambling halls.
We do, don't we?
In the state of Florida. Right, 6 or 7 years ago, this industry, quote unquote, didn't exist, and there's about 1,000 of these in the state, generating about $1 billion that's most of it is being shipped out of our economy to other states.
Oh, really?
And why I'm so passionate about this bill is they openly admit to targeting the poor and elderly. There was an expose in Business Week last year.
Just like bingo.
Yeah, well, I don't know about bingo, but the proprietors of the software said we target the poor and elderly because they're bad at math. And I don't think that that's what our state should be known for. And we are starting to be known for our inability to deal with this massive expansion of really unorganized gambling that's right in our strip centers, right next to the Publix and the dry cleaner. So I've filed a bill the last 2 years. This year it passed it through the House, House Bill 3, which would kind of hit the reset button and go back to where the state was without these. You know, it's gotten so bad, and you know, I'm concerned about the image of our state. Business Week doing that expose, there's now been deaths and the crime is starting to come out.
Well, and all the drugs too.
Right, there's a lot of problems with them. In the San Francisco Examiner last year, they have a thing called the Daily Outrage, and they had Florida's inability to deal with these storefront casinos is their daily outrage. So if people of San Francisco are laughing at us, I think we should be concerned.
As a conservative, I can really see where that would be a problem.
Well, our tourism economy depends on us having a good image, and these are antithetical to us having a good, wholesome image as a state, which brings a lot of tourism dollars here.
Scott, you've been in office for a while now, and there's a lot of people who have put you in office or helped you get into office. You also have had a number of people who might have been on the other side. Would you like to take about 2 minutes to thank the people who helped you and to assure those that didn't help you that you're still representing them too?
Well, you know, I come from Seminole County, and we are mostly Republican there. And one of the things that I found most interesting about coming to the Florida House is I was tasked with working with people that thought much differently than I did. And I called my wife, I remember a few weeks after being on the House floor, and I said, I tell you, it really makes you proud to be an American that we do things this way. That there are people in our House, representatives, that don't think anything like I do. But we, through the committee process and things come to the floor, we debate the issues of our day, and then we go to the members' dining room and we know our kids' names and such. So that's one thing that struck me. But to people that I'd like to believe that people that disagree with me, I think we have a responsibility to treat them with kindness and try to understand their point of view. And I think if in the bills that, like some of the ones we've just talked about, I've been able to get actually more Democrat co-sponsors on the energy and the stalking bill far more than Republicans. So that's one of my goals, to be able to work in a bipartisan fashion. And to the supporters that helped me when I first ran for the first time, I was elected in 2008, I made a promise at my campaign kickoff. There's about 300 people there, and I gave a 20-minute speech, and I found out that you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to keep 5-minute speeches as a politician. But in my 20-minute speech, I pledged that I would do my best to not make decisions just for this election cycle, but I would really have in mind the next generation and the impact on them. And that's not always easy to do. So I'm hopeful that if the voters this year give me another 2 years, that I can keep making decisions with that in light, and hopefully by the time, whether it's this year or 4 years from now or somewhere in between, that hopefully that I've been able to add something to it.
Well, from what you've told me about the bills you've sponsored and the activities you've been involved in, you have. And you know, it's very, very important. All of us say we want congeniality amongst our representatives. We want them to work together. Some of us don't show that, though, when we shout and we yell and put people down. And it's good to have people like yourself. You are a right-wing person. You are a conservative. But on the other hand, you're compassionate enough to look out and say, wait a minute, there are other ways to do things. Maybe we can incorporate some of those. Or at least that's what I'm hearing from you.
Well, that's right. And I, you know, we have the Occupy people that come out. They've come out to some of our events. Just this past week, I was at a Tea Party rally, and I went out with some of them, and I got my picture with them. And when they're up in Tallahassee, they were in Tallahassee, and there was a group of them that were yelling. And I walked up to them. I said, listen, you guys have an important voice here, but you don't have to yell. And I calmed them down and took a picture with them. And I think that that's the way things should be. Their voices should be able to be heard, but I think that on both sides of the aisle, we should do it with kindness and civility and persuasion. Okay, I believe that conservative ideals are what made this country great and what are adding to make Florida great. So I'm not going to back down on my belief of those, but I'm going to try to listen to other people and try to understand their point of view and persuade them that that's a better course. But that's why we have 120 representatives, 40 senators, and a governor get to make all these decisions, because none of us is absolutely right. Well, with that, I have to tell you, I appreciate your coming all the way over here from the Orlando area. It was a long drive to get to the studio. I know you went through some very bad traffic to do it, and I really appreciate your taking this time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Plakon. Scott is District 30 now. It'll be District 30 this election. Thanks for coming over. I appreciate you being here. I'm Bill Hodges, the Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself so often, you know, because you are. We'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government, and I hope you'll come back. Certainly. Thanks, Bill. Look forward to you. Have an open invitation. Thanks.
The odds of this daughter of a clergyman spending 11 weeks at #1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org.